Everybody. Thanks for coming back. I think if you caught our lighthearted banter, you know what a fun group we are. So I'm sure you want to come join with us and talk about the meanings behind songs. And as we did that poll about what was popular when we started, I thought a lot of you all weren't even born then. So it was like listening to the 50s music or whatever for you, which is a new wake up call for me. So today we are happy to bring you for our introductory version of the Getting to the Win-Win. A group of us RPMs got together and kind of brainstormed with Greg and McNewton, trying to think about what really determines the success of a center. And we talked and thought, and our consensus was that the relationships you build are what determine the success of your center. Your interpersonal skills, your ability to get to the win-win with the people in your sphere of influence really does determine how well your center is able to function. It's not a one and done thing. It's not something that's going to happen immediately just because you're a nice person and you make friends easily. It's something that's going to take some work on your part, going to take some forethought. But we hope it's work that will be well rewarded and that you'll enjoy in the end, that you will feel that success and you'll know that the changes you're making in your school, in your community, with your families really do matter, because that's the truth. You are the piece that can connect all the little other pieces together to make a cohesive puzzle. So we're excited about that. And we're excited to bring this to you. So my compadres here are Paul Kuckendorfer, Lisa Gay, and Russell Jones. And we're just excited to be sure that you're getting the foundation you need to build those relationships. A quote that kept coming back to me is, a lot of times our attitude determines our altitude. How we go about it, how we look at things, that determines how far we're able to go. And when I use we, I really mean your center, because when you go out to meet with your principal, to meet with community members, to go out and see a family, you're representing that center and that school and that community to whoever the other members are you're talking to. When you're talking to your principal, a lot of times you're representing your families and the community. When you're out in the community, a lot of times you're representing the school. They think, oh, she or he's from the school. And so what they're saying is from the school. When you're going to your families, you're representing the school, your center, but you're also representing yourself, because those relationships you make with them are often very personal. They're often the one-to-one that determines who they trust. Sometimes you will meet with families that you're the only person in the school they trust. They don't answer other people's phone calls. They don't answer when other people knock at the door. And when it's you from the Family Resource Center, it's you from the Youth Service Center, even if you've got somebody else with you, which I hope you always do, they'll come to the door for you. They'll answer the phone for you. So I think it's really important that we kind of get some foundational knowledge of what your thoughts are about important relationships. So Greg, could you share our poll? And I'm going to ask that everyone complete it. Those of you sharing a computer, you might just have one answer. I think 30 seconds is probably plenty for us to determine. During your first year as a coordinator, which relationship should be your primary focus? Greg, we hadn't talked through this. I think we want you to hold on to those results for a minute while we talk a little bit about our objectives, and then we'll move on to kind of debriefing that poll.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you. So our objectives, as we thought about this training, was we wanted you to come away understanding the importance of developing relationships with all stakeholders, and also understanding the role of the center within the school. Those were our two primary objectives, but we're interested in knowing what you want to get out of this session. So if you can drop your comments in the chat, if there's something you're hoping to learn that we haven't included in our listed objectives, then we want to know that, because we want to be sure that we make an opportunity to cover that. So you can be typing in the chat and I can keep talking. Greg, I think if you'll hit again, I'm going to pop a quote up in that blue box I want to reference. Ooh, we used important stuff here. Nobody cares what you know until they know that you care. And that is a quote that I believe resonates strongly with all of us, because especially with our families, until they have a trust in you personally, sometimes they are not able to go any farther. I can't tell you what I need until I know I can trust you. And I will say, within your building, that kind of relationship is going to be very important too. And I see it in different ways. I see it manifest itself different ways with different principals and different administrators. But there are many principals, until they know that you really care about the same objectives they do, about the kids getting to school, about the kids being able to learn at high levels, about the kids' needs being met, they're not going to trust you with an important project. They're not going to pull you into the inner sanctum where they're talking about the big results. But they are, once you show that you care about the kids, that you care about this school, that you're invested in your community, then you'll see that circle begin to widen. You'll see that you're asked to join more teams. You're asked to be a part of more of the fundamental things that are going on. The teacher who invited you to come to their virtual pizza party, they'll invite you into those things because they want you to experience with them. They want you to see what Johnny's saying about what's going on at home, or what Susie presents at field day or her talent contest. They want you to get to know them like they do. So that goes back to knowing they know that you care. So then they involve you even more, which is an important part of this process as we go along. So don't expect overnight to be everybody's best friend and to be the one they rely on. Most of you, I guess all of you, have gone into existing centers. So you're following a previous coordinator, good, bad, wonderful, ugly, whatever those relationships were, you're coming into that too. As some of you talked about redecorating your offices and about changing things up and making them inviting, I found that really interesting, because in my mind, I thought, oh, you're making your mark. You're trying to separate a little bit from what came before. Doesn't mean that it's bad at all, just means that your center needs an identity that's reflective of what you're doing. Thus, you care, and it shows that you care. So I think that's an important start for us. I'm going to glance in the chat just a moment and see if anybody else had an objective that we didn't get onto yet. I don't see one, but please feel free to use that chat as you need to. And I am going to now share with my friend Lisa. I think we're ready for the next slide.
I think this is Russell's slide.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
So, Greg, can you throw up the results of the poll for just a moment?
I would be glad to.
So as we look, so realistically, students and families pulled up a high percentage of the people that you had that everybody said was the most important thing you should be focusing on. 12% of you said your principal. So we kind of use this poll as a way to see kind of what you were thinking, but also we want to tell you that we didn't give you the actual answer. The actual real answer for this poll is all of them. All of them are the most important relationships you can have. You can develop you need to develop things with all of these different people throughout the year. I know that's probably the answer most of you are probably looking for, but then you just pick the one that you felt would be the best. So Greg, if you can take those down. And every center is unique. All of you are going to be completely different from one another, even though you're going through some of the same things, even though you're looking at a lot of the same situations that you're having to deal with. Everybody is unique, and everybody is going to deal with things in a unique way. And not only are you unique and your center is unique, so are your buildings, so are your districts, so are your community partners. Everybody brings something different to the table. And our priorities are driven by student need, student and family need. That's how we derive all the things that we have. And we want to partner with people that have similar goals as us, even though they may be different, even though they may be completely opposite, but it's as long as they have the same goal. And our goal should be the betterment of our families, the betterment of our students. We have to look and see what relationships we can cultivate, what things we can reach and grab a hold of, people that we can put in our corner to help us achieve that goal. And the biggest part that we do is we collaborate. You're going to probably see that as you get into looking at your continuation program plan at the action components that you have. You're probably going to see that word collaboration quite often. And as RPMs, it seems like sometimes we look like we're a broken record saying the word collaboration all the time. Because again, the more partners we have, the better off we can be, the better we can serve families, the better we can be at serving the people that are in our charge, so to speak. And we can have long-term partnerships with lots of growth potential. There's long-term partnerships that we can have. And COVID has really shown us that. COVID has really brought out that we have so many people that are partners we've never had before. But now that we've went through this horrific situation, we went through this unprecedented time, that we now have these partners that maybe can be partners for life. It can be partners that maybe we can have when something else may happen. It's partners that can come up, and maybe we can find different people to partner with that we've never had before. So at the bottom, we have some things listed on the screen. And again, these slides should be in your book, so you can kind of look through and see who all they are. But within your school community, there are all kinds of people that you can partner with. You can go partner with your school administration, which is not only at your district level, your board of education, and also within your building. You have your principal and your counselors and all those people that are in leadership type positions. School-based organizations, you'll spend a lot of time talking with the SBDM, the site-based decision-making council, your PTA, PTO, PTG, whatever kind of parent organization you have. That's a wonderful partnership for us to be able to use. Student government, PBIS teams, those type of places. Those are places that we have natural fits. And then also within your school community, you have your staff that you can look to, your teachers, your counselors, your custodians, food service, office staff, bus drivers, everybody that works with kids, everybody that sees kids. It's so important to cultivate those relationships, because so many times I had this mistake when I first started as a coordinator. We went in and it was like, okay, I'm going to partner with these teachers. I got to make sure I get with the teachers. They're going to know their kids better than anybody. They're going to know who exactly it is. And teachers do know their kids. But the longer I was there, and the more I saw the people that knew those kids better than anybody was, if I need to know who was hungry, the cafeteria staff knew what kids were hungry. If I needed to know what a kid's house looked like, I'm going to go talk to the bus driver, because they know where that kid lives every single day. It's so important to cultivate those relationships with sometimes people that we don't even think about. Grab the people that are around you. We got to foster those relationships with our families, with the caregivers, whether it be a parent, a grandparent, a foster family, siblings, raising younger siblings. We have so many things beyond the traditional family unit that we have to grab a hold of those families, and we have to be able to communicate with them to build that relationship. We have students. You have to communicate with the community at large. Businesses are a great thing. People for profit, people that are not for profit, community organizations, interagency councils are incredibly valuable, because it lets you meet with other stakeholders that can tell you what things are out there, what other groups that are out there that are like-minded as us, that are working on the same goals. Then don't neglect your government people as well. Not only, you'll hear a lot of times, you've probably seen stuff from the coalition already that talks about, and Melissa spoke about it just a few minutes ago, that people can't believe that we are state funded. They can't believe that after 30 years, we're still getting state funding for our program, which is the sustainability of our program. It's so amazing to think that even has come together, but it's more than just our state government. It's our county government, our city government. And even at the national level, this is the first time I can ever remember during COVID, the FRYSC program was mentioned on the U.S. Senate floor by Senator Mitch McConnell. It's amazing to think of the work that you guys are doing every single day has become, especially during COVID, has become so prevalent. So we need to keep those connections, and we need to cultivate those relationships. Later today, you're going to see a session about advisory councils. Advisory councils are so incredibly important because it ties everybody together. It brings all these people to the table when we're able to make decisions, when we're able to do the things that are going to be for the betterment of our students and our families. Greg, can you go to the next slide, please? So you have a sphere of influence. You have something around you. You have a group of people that you can communicate with, that you have influence over. And the responsibility that it's your responsibility, it's our responsibility as a coordinator to make sure the communication is working. It's our responsibility. We're the one, we can't say, oh, well, I tried this, or I tried that, or I tried by the phone, or I just tried by email, or I just tried by this, or tried by that. It's our responsibility to find the communication that works. And when we're communicating, we must be honest. We must be open, because that's the most productive way that we're going to build our reputation. The reputation that you have, and see, this is the advantage that as new coordinators that you have after 30 years, there's a reputation that FRYSC has. There's a reputation of help. There's a reputation of taking care of families. There's a reputation, there's a good name with FRYSC. Most people know what a FRYSC is. It's our job to keep that reputation where it is. It's our job to keep that reputation in the place that it needs to be. And it all starts with that good, open, and honest communication. There are so many different ways in the world we live in today. There are so many ways that we can communicate. There are so many ways that we have the ability to talk to people and to show that reputation, to uphold that reputation. When we start looking, we can email, we can talk on the phone, we can text, face-to-face, written updates, social media. There's so many different ways that we can communicate that we need to take advantage of all of them. We need to use every piece of communication that we have, because some of our families may only have one. We've got to be willing to do the one. We've got to be willing to do the one thing that they want. We can't depend on our preferred method of communication. We've got to be willing to meet people where they are, and we've got to be willing to go to what their communication is, not ours, because communication is the key to building those relationships. So how would you respond? We're going to have Paul's going to jump on here, and we're going to actually throw you guys into some breakout rooms. We're going to throw you into 3 different breakout rooms today, and we're going to give you scenarios to let you talk about. So Paul, if you would.
Yes, just to add a little bit to Russell's presentation there, obviously communication is essential in this job. Miscommunication can be devastating in this job. And like Russell said, it's a coordinator's responsibility to facilitate and start that communication. This isn't a job where you kind of wait in your office and somebody comes and knocks on the door and gives you a program idea. Does that happen? Sometimes, often, not as much. So you're the one that's facilitating most of the communication, at least in the beginning, right? And then, as Russell stated, as people trust you, more people will come to you with ideas to share about programming and activities. And, also, you need to be very aware of what your most effective way to communicate is with others. Maybe it's email, maybe it's face-to-face, maybe it's in writing, and certainly know the person that you're communicating with, what their most effective way to communicate is also. Because if you only try it your way and it doesn't work, which we're getting ready to have a few scenarios as it pertains to that, then you got to be ready to communicate another way. I think, are the scenarios in the chat box?
Yes. So what we're going to do is I'm going to put the scenario for the first scenario in the chat box. So Paul, if you want to.
I'll go ahead and read that to you as Russell's putting it in the chat box. Scenario number 1. This has to do with your building principal. You've emailed the principal 4 times and they've not responded. What do you do next? So when you go to your breakout room, we're going to have some discussions around that particular question.
All right. So within the breakout room, Greg, if you don't care to send everybody to breakout rooms, you're going to have about 6 minutes within the room. So introduce yourself, figure out somebody that's going to be a reporter for you, somebody that's going to talk for your group, and then we'll bring you back and we'll see you guys in about 6 minutes.
Welcome back, everybody, from breakout groups. And we'll turn it back over to the group.
All right, fantastic. So what we're going to do is we're going to ask for one group that just is dying to share your information. One group, share what you talked about. Don't make me call on somebody.
Well, I'll go. Our group had discussed just making sure we build that relationship with our principal so that we can, if the emails are not working, just kind of going to them saying, hey, excuse me, I know you're busy. I know there's a lot going on. Can I have a moment of your time and then discuss the issues that we were going to email her about and have those conversations with the principal during that time.
All right, fantastic. So it's all about changing communication style. It was all about changing the, how can we do this or how can we do, whatever it is. All right, fantastic. Okay, so Mr. Cookendorfer, would you like to go through the next scenario?
There we go. Hey, just want to share one thing real quick that was in the breakout group that I happen to be in is sometimes a principal will designate someone else as the go-to person on checking about doing programs and activities. And that's something that we didn't talk about very much, but they may say, hey, on everything about programs and activities and making those arrangements, I want you to speak to the assistant principal, or I'm going to designate the counselor. So keep that in mind also. It may not always be the principal that you're dealing with principal type questions with. They may designate someone else. So I thought that was very, very good that came up in our group. Okay, scenario number 2. You have a community partner that has referred several families to your center for rent assistance. The problem is that none of those families have students in your school. So what do you need to do next as far as communication with the folks who are coming for the rent assistance, and also with the community partner that's giving you all these referrals? So the question is, what would you do? What would you do next if you had that situation?
And so the scenario is posted in the chat if you forget when you get into the room. So we're going to send you back to the room. And this time we're going to let you talk let's talk through this one for about 5 minutes. At this moment in time.
And for anyone who did miss out and is watching this recording, we're so glad that you're here, and we're sorry that you can't be in a breakout group right now.
Well, my new coordinator already won brownie points for me by reading the administrator guidebook. So excited.
So for any new coordinators that are watching this, read the administrator's guidebook.
Yes. Ways to make friends and influence people.
Make sure you use your FRYSC user's guide.
Yes.
To do your budget amendments, please. Thank you.
Was that Betty?
If you follow the steps, I promise they work.
This is going to be the best session to watch the recording from.
The force will be with you, right?
Yes.
That's right.
These are not the droids you're looking for.
I guarantee you it will work if you read your FRYSC counts users guide. You follow it, please.
When I do the training, I'm actually training from the user's guide, not the computer.
There you go.
They emphasize that.
Yeah.
We're going to rename this session Nuggets of Wisdom.
The one universal truth in FRYSC counts is the user's guide.
Well, welcome back. People are just bouncing back from breakout groups. In about 5 seconds, we should have everybody back. I can absolutely.
Let's look at one group. Give us something that you talked about in your group. And also, the one group that's going to share, you're going to get to speak. Everybody else, if you have other ideas, throw them in the chat. Go ahead and put them in the chat box. I know a couple of groups did that on the last one. And again, that last comment that came in, and maybe before everybody went to the break, was talk to your principal secretary about finding when the best time to collaborate is. That is amazing advice.
Great.
Because they know all.
I said not it to my group, but I guess I'll go ahead and do it.
Awesome.
One of the things that was brought up in our group was that you could reach back out to that community partner and just explain to them, hey, this is the way the FRYSC program works. That way the families aren't shuffled around and they feel as if the need and issue that they have is important. Someone also said that in their district that they have cards that they distribute to all the community partners that lets them know who is the FRYSC person for each school and at each grade level, so that they don't have to guess who to send a person to. They just automatically know. And another person said, well, it's generally not a big deal. We're a small county, so I'll just go ahead and forward them to who they need to speak with.
All right, fantastic. So thank you all for sharing. We greatly appreciate it. So, Paul, if you want to hit the third scenario.
Yes, the third scenario is, can you think of an example of when you had to change the way you communicated with a family in order to serve them better? Can you think of an example of when you had to change the way you communicated with a family in order to serve them better?
All right. So, Greg, if you want to give them another 5 minutes. As you're going through these, it's so important to see the different types of communication and the different people that you're going to have to communicate with and all the different scenarios that are going to have to happen as you go through everything. Because in that last scenario, you not only did you have to deal with a community partner, but you had a community partner, you had a parent, you had another coordinator, you had all kinds of different things at play with different people that you have to communicate. And you may have to communicate in a different way with all of them. So scenario 3.
All right, everybody. And how many minutes?
5.
5 it is. Okay, here goes, everybody. Welcome back from breakouts, everyone.
All right. So now that everybody's back, from now on, when we share, if we have you guys ask you guys to share something, if you could just tell us like who you are when you come to share, just tell us who you are, where you're from, that kind of thing before you go to share would be great. I think we're actually going to kick it to Lisa and let you go ahead and do start with the next stuff, Miss Lisa.
Okay. So, let's see. Can I have one volunteer to kind of debrief us on what your group talked about as far as changing communication to better serve a family? And if it's not your group sharing, then you can put any great comments you have in the chat. But somebody unmute and start in.
We talked about, just say if we can't get them on the phone, we'll send a letter, or we will email that parent if we have an email, or we'll do a home visit if we can't contact that parent by phone. So that's what we talked about in our group. And my name is Angela Thomas, Region 1.
Thank you, Angela.
Well, look at Region 1. All right. So, Greg, if you would go on to the next slide. And let's see. Another coordinator suggested using the language line or migrant worker if it is maybe an ESL family. So that is a very good suggestion. So basically, what I'm hearing over and over again is communication. And one of the best indicators of whether a coordinator will be successful in this role is their ability to build relationships. So communication is something we've talked about in the last several slides. It's a huge part of building that relationship. You have to be the quintessential communicator, because I know you know what your preference is, but not everybody's going to communicate in your preference. So it's really your responsibility to learn your stakeholders' communication style, and you need to communicate in that format. I really like that group one that shared out and said, you know, we're going to reach out first by phone. If that doesn't work, maybe send a letter. If that doesn't work, email. If that doesn't work, home visit. That's, you know, you are just constantly changing your style to find the niche of what is your stakeholders' preferred mode of communication. So that's huge. Another way to build a strong relationship is investing your time. And you can do this by, it's sometimes we get so caught up in our agenda and our schedule. And I was totally guilty of this, having two schools. Sometimes I would, you know, run into somebody and they would want to chat about something that wasn't on my agenda, and I would have to, you know, unconsciously slow myself down to give them the time to share what they wanted to share, because that's how you build a relationship. You invest your time, you show genuine interest in what they're going through, their family, maybe their students or their classroom, and just by showing that genuine interest, you are building that relationship. When you go into your principal's office, or, you know, a really strong community partner you have, if they have photos of their family, talk to them, ask them about their family. When you're investing that time, it's easier for people to want to naturally help you and invest that time back into you, because you're showing that you have a genuine care for them, who they are as a person, who they are in their job. And that makes people more willing to be on your team and want to play with you and give you that win-win. Be helpful. Sometimes, you know, there are things going on in the building that might not necessarily involve you, but there are also going to be times that you have things that are going on in your building that you're going to need help with. So if you jump in and are helpful with, let's say somebody suddenly has a sick kid and they have to leave, and you jump in to, you know, do the end of the day car rider duty that one time, that's being helpful. If your librarian is doing a book fair and you say, hey, you know, do you need volunteers, or do you need plastic bags, or you're being helpful. And when it comes to your family literacy night, guess who's going to want to jump in and help you back? People that you have invested your time in. Another key to building a strong relationship is reliability. You know, Russell had talked about earlier, and maybe even Andre, about that, the reputation of FRYSC. And you do have the benefit of 30 years of experience of FRYSC before you, but you can't rest on that, because you are going to continue to build that reputation by who you are. If you say you're going to do something, you need to do it. This helps continue to build your reputation and your center, because now it is your responsibility to do that. And stay positive. That's one of the best ways to build a relationship with somebody, is to actually smile and be positive, because nobody is going to want to come and hang out and spend time with you if you always look like you just finished sucking on a lemon. So be positive and have a positive attitude that attracts a lot. So let's go to the next slide, please, Greg. And we're going to hit a few things about what you need to know if you've never worked in a school. Working in a school is different. It's different than I came from the nonprofit world. And when I first started working in a school and I asked the teacher, hey, can I come into your room and do this, dental presentation? She said, sure, you can have 1017 to 1043. What she really meant was I could have 1017 to 1043. Because a lot of schools, especially elementary, are programmed right down to the minute. So some of the things you need to know if you've been in a school, if you've never worked in a school, be visible in the mornings, in the hallways, at dismissal. Those are important times for you to connect with your kids that are coming off the bus. Teachers are going to see you around the building and they're going to be like, wow, she's really busy. My days that I had the slowest day was the days I walked around my building more. And usually at the end of the day, my teacher would inevitably, somebody would comment and say, wow, you were so busy today. I saw you all over the place. And that could have been furthest from the truth. But if you're visible, they will grab you and tell you what they need. And that's a great time to start investing and building that relationship. The first week of school and other busy times, pitch in where you can. This goes back to that being helpful. If you are helpful, more likely you're going to see a return on that investment. And then follow up, follow up, follow up. This goes kind of back to being reliable and dependable. If somebody asks you to do something, you do it. If you are asked by a teacher to check in on a student, give that teacher feedback. Now, I'm not telling you need to break confidentiality and tell them everything, but let them know, just acknowledge by email or by a conversation, hey, I checked in with that student and I'm on it. Okay. If you want your staff to help you with events, you need to be there to help them, be a team player. You have Grandparents' Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving events. Those are things that you do that you might need help with. Veterans Day events might be something your guidance counselor does. If you pitch in with that, then they're more likely to help you. Check in with teachers during planning times to see if they have student concerns or needs. I tried as a coordinator not to interrupt classroom time if it was at all possible. I was big on trying to make sure that once a day at different times during the day, I would walk around and try to pop in on teachers if it was during their planning, because if you need to go to them, if you stay in your office and expect them to come to you, you're going to get fewer referrals. So check in with them. If they don't have anything, maybe ask them a question to reinvest in that. How's your kids doing? I noticed on Facebook you were at soccer all weekend. How'd that go? Oh, that's awesome. Just investing. Be mindful of times and schedules. Like I said before, schools are very schedule oriented and they run by the clock. Lunch is at a certain time, recess is at a certain time, there's an ending time for activity. Be mindful of those things. And walk school hallways, cafeteria, the office periodically. The perception is if you aren't seen, you're not doing much. And that could be further from the truth, but that is the perception, and perception is really what matters. Um, and then here's something we kind of talked about as a group when we were planning this. It's important to know the important people. So think about who most people think are the most important people in their building, and then think about who is the most important to you, who can help you get your job done. Is it your principal? Is it your guidance counselor? Is it your custodian, the secretary who might be the gatekeeper of all the front administration offices, your bus driver, as Paul or Russell referred to as knowing where the kids live, your food service people? Those are people you want to be kind to, because they are the important people to know. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice, said John Templeton. And I couldn't agree with that more. I'm going to turn our next slide over to Paul.
Thank you, Lisa. This slide, we're going to talk about the FRYSC role in schools, and sometimes in order to know who you are, it's very important to know who you are not in some cases. What we are is a school-based family support program that seeks to remove non-cognitive barriers. And being a new coordinator, it is very important to establish what your role is in the school and communicate that very clearly. Because typically, as a new coordinator, sometimes you will get asked to do some things or participate in some activities that might be a little bit, let's just say, on the fringe of what your role is as a FRYSC coordinator in that particular school. So we thought one way to illustrate this point is to talk about some of the things that we are not able to do, and then follow it up with something we are able to do in that particular scenario. Here's the thing: if you are put in a position where you have to say, no, I can't do that. No, I can't do this. No, the contract says I can't do that. No, the administrator guidebook says I can't do this. If you start out as being the no person, it is very, very hard to get past that label. So what I try to emphasize with my new coordinators is, no, we can't do this, but we can do this particular program or activity to get the same result that you had asked for. And this is basically, you're speaking to your principal or a group of teachers or even your advisory council for that matter. So what are we not? We're not classroom teachers, but we do teach after school or parenting programs, social emotional learning groups and things of that nature, especially if you happen to have previous experience of that. Everybody that comes in here is experiencing something. If that is it, if that is your bailiwick, doing after school groups, when you've been trained in social emotional learning, then that's a perfect way to get something like that done. A lot of the groups or activities that you will see done after school by coordinators is something that they're really, really passionate about. Maybe it's a photography club, maybe it's a girls on the run club or something like that. The second one, we are not the DPP, but we do assist students and families learn the importance of attendance. How we do that, maybe through attendance clubs, maybe through incentives that would not be paid for out of FRYSC funds, and anything that we can do to help get those students to school, because we know if they're not at school, they're not going to learn that day. And a lot of that has a lot to do with the relationship you build with that particular student's family, because we as Family Resource Youth Service Center coordinators, we can get families to participate in things or do things that other people in the school cannot. And it's because you've developed that relationship. So that's what we can do to help towards increasing attendance. Are we the school nurse? No, we're not the school nurse, but we may deal with hygiene, lice issues, and things of that nature. One of the things that I think about here, we're not the school nurse, but we can have somebody from the health department come in and do the germ buster program. So we do deal in the health field, but it's important to know what our role is in each of these. Are we the thrift store? No, we're not the thrift store, but we do have clothing closets and for emergencies and clothing, in our office, especially if you're in an elementary school. That's going to be one way you're going to spend some of your valuable time, is making sure kids, have a suit of clothes to change into if there's been an accident of some sort. Are we cafeteria monitors? And no, probably not. Is it a good idea to go out into the cafeteria, though, if you are not assigned a duty there, to talk to kids and start building those relationships? Yeah, it's very valuable. What about, are we the ultimate parking lot attendants? We we try not to have inflexible duties assigned to us. But if you do go out there in the morning when the parents are dropping students off, that's a great way to talk to the parents, right? And if you do happen to get assigned a particular duty like that, use it to your advantage. Use it as a time to talk to students and talk to parents and develop those relationships. The other one, that we get this a lot, especially at the time when budget amendments due, are the U.S. FRYSC school bank. A lot of times you will get asked, not as much for programming sometimes, but hey, can you pay for this? Can you pay for that? Can you pay for an intercom system that communicates with parents out in the parking lot? That's kind of stretching it a little bit there, but you want to be you want to be seen as more than just a place to come and get money. You want to become a financial partner with your school and community to provide some necessary programming and or activities listed in your action components. And remember that as you begin to spend money, you want to relate everything back to your action components, and that's where you have some of the better communication with building principals and others that put in requests for particular programs or particular ways to spend money. Are you a food pantry? No, not really a food pantry, but do you have emergency food there for students? Do you participate in the weekly backpack program as a center? The answer to that is yes. So what we're trying to do here is just give you some opportunities. If you have to say no, you follow it by yes. No, I can't do that, but yes, I can do this, and it's going to get you the same result. I'm just going to travel a different path to get there. And that's very important. That's very important to be able to establish that yes part of the no yes relationship with those individuals in your school. You just can't be seen as the quoter of administrators guidebooks and the quoter of the contract in order to say no. So you got to find a way to figure out some ways to be able to say yes in some of these scenarios. Have to do it a different way, and these are some of the examples that you can use when thinking about that. Okay, and I think our next slide goes back to Andrea.
I do. I get to do a little bit of a wrap up here before Paul closes us out. One thing was brought to my attention in my little private chat was sometimes we use a lot of jargon. We use a lot of jargon with letters that stand for things. DPP is Director of Pupil Personnel, which in a smaller district is often a key player in the truancy process. And for us, we're not ever the truancy folks. I'm here to help you understand the importance of being at school, the importance of why little Johnny or Susie needs to be here with us every day. But I am not the one who's going to be filling out that paperwork about you going to court about this. So that's important to remember, is when you don't understand the jargon, please ask, or Google it. And, I've been known to do that during a meeting to try to figure out what it is. And there is a KDE jargon guide on there someplace I think you can find. I may go look for that and throw it up there in a minute, because you're going to hear a lot of jargon. If you're new to the school system, we use the ABCs and rearrange them in such ways that they can stand for everything in the world. And when it becomes your own little role, you kind of forget that not everybody else understands those. So, when you hear the jargon, please always ask or Google it and find out. I doubt that anybody can sit down and memorize all of that and make it meaningful. So I think it's a learn as you go thing, and want to all be lifelong learners. We're always continuing to learn about new things. We're going to speak a little bit about investment, time, talent, treasure. Some of you church folks may have heard that in another setting, but it's really applicable here. You've got to be in control of your time. It's important to figure out how you're going to distribute your time, or it'll all get away from you. You'll spend a whole day and not know what happened. One fire after another will pop up and your whole day will be gone. So it's important to think about the big things you need to accomplish and how you're going to do that. There are always going to be emergencies that flare up that you're going to need your immediate attention. but you do have to manage your time, and it's kind of a brokerage. It's kind of, I have to go to some of this community stuff and that takes me out of the building, but I need to be a part of that meeting. So sometimes your role is going to have to be explaining to other people how your time is brokered, explaining to the principal why it is you were out at meetings 3 mornings this week, and explain why they're all important. And I don't know about you, but you may find, in my case, everybody met the 3rd week of the month. And so it was a lot of times Monday morning and Tuesday afternoon and Thursday morning, all in the same week. And then you'll hear somebody else say, I never see her anymore. Where have you been, stranger? That was always my least favorite thing when I walked back into a building. Oh, where you been, stranger? We haven't seen you forever. Just laugh and kind of go on. But also keep in the back of your mind, that means that person probably needs to be educated a little bit about what it is you're doing. Along those lines, I found it was always a very important thing, whoever the gatekeeper was, for that person to know where I was. So if I'm going to be out first thing Monday morning or Tuesday morning or whatever, I would send an email to my principal, as well as the principal's secretary or the attendance clerk, whoever was sitting there at that desk, and say, Monday morning, 8:45, I've got a meeting with the Community Early Childhood Council. I should be in about 10, so that people didn't feel like you were hiding, didn't feel like you were trying to get away with something. And often, if that principal forgets what the email says, when they're walking through the office and they say, where is she? Then that other person can kind of be your advocate and go, oh, yeah, she sent an email. I know where she is. She'll be here about 10. Just that communication can be a lifesaver. So that time management, it's a big deal. And then helping other people around you to understand your time management, because you may be the only person in your building going and coming like that. Most people get there at 7:45 and leave at 3:15 and don't leave for any meetings in between. So again, it's an education thing about your time. Your talent, whatever it is that you were hired because you brought that talent to your interview, because you showed that passion and that purpose to people, bring that talent with you to this community of yours, this school, this whole community, wherever you are, the families you're serving. Bring that, because that joy, that passion follows you, and they need to know that. And once you're recognized in your school as being good at tech or being good at making flyers or being good, then people are going to come to you and ask for that. And it gives you another purpose, gives you another opportunity to kind of be sharing and bartering so that you get more support for your program. Treasure. In this sense, I think of treasure as your grant money that you have, that you're able to kind of divvy up to decide what things are important. It's going to be based on needs assessment. It's going to be based on your grant, but you are responsible for how that money is spent, for how that treasure is spent in your school community with your families. So again, that's another way you're investing. When you're using that to help to secure programs, to bring in useful resources, to grow new and inventive ideas, those are all important ways that you're using that treasure for the benefit of your families. So I love this quote. They may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And that is absolutely true of your parents, of your students, of your community members. They know how you interact and how you make them feel. So it's always important to remember that emotional response, the way you made them feel, is going to be their gut response when they think about you. So it's important to make that as good as often as you can. Always make the other person feel important. This goes back, if you've ever read any of the developmental assets research, it was big a few years ago, not quite as big now, but it's still very true. They're the basis for what makes people feel important. You listen to them, you know what they're saying, you know their name and use it, especially for children and families. When you say, hi, Susan, I'm glad to see you today. Hi, Mrs. Kuiper, how are things going? That matters. It makes me feel valued that you know who I am. Always be courteous and respectful. And I mean this in every realm you deal with. I'm sorry if you're grumpy on Friday night and you send out a mean tweet on Twitter, it's going to come back and find you. If you say something ugly on somebody's Facebook post, it's going to come back and find you. You are a public persona now. You are out there representing your center all the time. So I'm not saying you can't be true to who you are, but recognize that once you put something out there in writing, something out there on social media, something you might be recorded saying, then it's out there. So it's really, really important that you need to be courteous and respectful. Along those lines, you need to be honest. So if you always tell the truth in the kindest possible way, it's going to serve you well. It's going to be important to your program. Your integrity in your program is very important. One of my kindest compliments I ever had is I had an assistant who served with me long term. And one day I heard her tell our principal, you know, Andrea can tell you your kid stinks in 14 languages and you'll tell her thank you when she's done. That's what you got to be able to do. You got to be able to be truthful, but you got to do it in such a way that they know you're coming from a place of support and of caring. We should always express sincere appreciation. When anybody does anything for us, write the thank you note, send the thank you text, shout it out on social media. Be sincere so that people know you appreciate what they've done. And I am a big believer in handwritten notes right now because there are so few of them around. People notice when you write them a handwritten card. So if you can take the time to do that to the people who are benefactors of your program, it's going to reap great rewards. And begin with the positive. I'm pretty sure Lisa has already said that today, but always, always try to start from a place that's positive that you can build from. So if I'm going to tell you your kid stinks, that's not going to be the first thing I say off the bat. And first I'm going to say, I love that I saw her today and she came up and said hello to me. She's got such good social skills. And then I'm going to get around to the harder part because I want you to know that I value you and I value the positive parts. And I want us to grow together through the areas where we need to grow. So now I think we are ready to turn back to Paul to close us out. And
I think it's Lisa and Russell maybe have a slide.
That's okay. I just want to shout an amen in there. Well, Andrea, I felt like I was at church, so I agree with everything you said. Greg, if you'll hit it one more time, I think we have something else come up on this slide. Adaptability, really a lot of the stuff that is on this slide, we have hit throughout this presentation. But one thing I do want to point out is, be aware of your school priorities. You always have to think outside the box and find how can you line up the FRYSC components or your action plan with the school priorities. And you have to be adaptable. So find out what your school priorities, what your principal's vision is, and find out how you can mesh that into meeting your program plan. And I'll just defer now in paying attention to time to Paul, who is going to wrap us up with a true win-win situation. Take it away, Paul.
All right, if we can have the next slide, please. What we're going to wind up today is hopefully, you know that the theme today has been communication and relationship building. So we tried to figure out a way to express this, and I came up with a story about the sun and the wind. I didn't come up with it. Actually, it's Aesop's fable, so I'd like to read that to you right now to end our session. Years ago, when I was a barefoot boy walking through the woods of a country school out in northern Kentucky, I read a fable about the sun and the wind. They quarreled about which one was stronger, and the wind said, "I'll prove I am. See the old man down there with the coat? I bet I can get his coat off him quicker than you can." So the sun went behind a cloud, and the wind blew until it was almost a tornado. But the harder it blew, the tighter the old man clutched his coat to him. Finally, the wind calmed down and gave up. And then the sun came out from behind the clouds and smiled kindly on the old man. Presently, he mopped his brow and pulled off his coat. The sun then told the wind that gentleness and friendliness were always stronger than fury and force. Same thing with our communications folks. We appreciate your all's time and attention. And I just want to wish you a good rest of the day for the upcoming sessions. And on behalf of all of us, we thank you for giving us this opportunity. Thanks.